Alright everyone, it's time for Vermont Issues, episode 15, Vermont Maple Syrup. I don't know if a lot of people understand this. I've actually met people from outside of sort of the New England slash Southern Canadian regions, outside of the syrup belt or whatever you'd call it, that can't tell the difference between pancake syrup and actual maple syrup. And when they say this, I'm like, well, what are you talking about? They don't even taste remotely the same. One tastes like a weird sort of throat-burning corn syrup, and the other one's actually tasty. And you can tell fairly easily the difference, like there's no competition between the two. Some people, though, I guess if they weren't raised early on tasting the difference, it takes them a while to actually recognize that there is one. But I'm telling you this, Vermont maple syrup is very expensive, but it's expensive for a reason. It's one of the few sort of touristy, overpriced things that we produce that's actually worth the extra price. And you'll find relatively few people in, I think, northern New England who don't prefer actual maple syrup. Some people don't buy it all the time, or they buy some mix. Like, there's that stuff called Vermont Made, which actually has nothing to do with Vermont. It's like 5% actual maple. And so it's a little bit more palatable than, like, I don't know, Aunt Jemima's pancake syrup or something like that. That's just basically syrup made out of corn remnants. Remnants from industrial processing. But not really. It's just kind of a little bit better. But try tasting actual syrup sometime. You don't have to buy like a gallon of it. I don't even know how much that costs at this point. It's quite a bit. Try buying a smaller bit of it, put it on some waffles or pancakes, and then try to taste the difference. Most people, I think, will have no difficulty doing so. Then some people are like, oh, Canadian syrup's better. No, it's not. It's really not. I've tried it. It's good. It's actual maple, but somebody has said, and I don't actually know if this is true, that there's a sub-branch of maple trees, sugar maples, specifically from this region, that actually produces a slightly different style of sap, thus turned into actual syrup. That may be true, and it may be just some sort of weird Vermont legend to explain why our syrup is superior or something. But if you've ever seen the syruping process, it's quite detailed. It's not just you take the sap from the trees and put it on your pancakes. It still tastes sweet like even the sap does, but that'll give you terrible diarrhea if you drink more than a little bit of it. What they do is they boil it down into the actual syrup to get rid of some of the excess moisture. It's purified and then bottled. It takes quite a long time. In these massive vats, they tap the trees, and then some of the places now, they have like literal pipe runs. And so the sap sort of runs through those and goes into the vat. In other places, they still put out their old tin cans, really, under the taps, and every morning they fill them back, and they take the full cans and haul them in, dump them into the vat, and put them back to keep tapping the tree. There's also a bit of folklore involved because of the importance of the maple industry here. For instance, I think the old adage was, the higher you tap, the sweeter the sap, the lower you tap, the more the sap, or something like that. And that's probably true, considering the flow of material up and down the tree over time. So Vermont maple syrup is better, and you probably should try it. It comes highly recommended by me because I prefer it, as opposed to getting a gallon of pancake syrup that doesn't even taste good. It's also terrible for you. I'm going to assume that a little bit of maple syrup isn't going to hurt anybody unless they're already diabetic, in which case maybe they slip into a coma. But if you've ever had like artificial maple flavor, you can tell the difference there too. There are candies and all sorts of weird stuff that we have that's got real maple in it. And it's just better. It just is. It's like, you know, Idaho has its potatoes. And, Florida has its gator jerky. Well, we have maple syrup. We get it from our trees. We don't need to plow anything up or shoot any animals in order to obtain our cash crop. And it was like years ago, there was a theft of maple syrup. You know, it's stored in these enormous facilities. I can't remember how many gallons were stolen, but it was $1 million or something worth of maple syrup. It was considered an extreme crime by our standards, and that was very funny, and you can actually look up the news reports from the time. It was a great coup. Somebody stole our syrup, so call the mounted police or something like that. I think Canada's had that problem a couple of times too, which makes sense since they're a syrup juggernaut as well. That's about all. Peace out.